Thanks, Lisa, Chris, Adam, and Michael. So the next panel we have is artist focused. So we have heard from a few artists throughout the day already, but this one's going to be really interesting. Some really OG artists that are sort of pushing the boundaries of physical and digital. We have had a couple of changes with this panel. You'll see my face. I'm back up here again. No? Okay. I'm back up here again. Kaya, unfortunately, has had to withdraw for an emergency. So I'm going to moderate the next panel, and I'm going to welcome up my guests, Jane Louise, who goes by at JL Artsphere on Twitter. Welcome, Jane. Come up to the stage. Jasmine Mansbridge also, so we're going to welcome Jasmine up. And Dundo. Come up, Dundo. And also we have, hopefully on the live stream, here he is, Marc-O-Matic. We're really going to funk it up in this panel. So we've heard a lot about the MetaKey today, and we just had Michael P from the MetaKey project. Marc-O-Matic, who you see on the screen right now, is actually the artist behind the MetaKey Edition 3. If you haven't seen it before, it is just incredible art. So we are very, very honoured to have you, Marc, join us. Can you hear us and can you say something so we can hear you?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. Hope you can hear me okay. Hope it's not too... Is that okay? Can you hear me all right?
Yep. Yeah, we can hear you all right. So thanks for joining us, and nice helicopter you're going around your face there. Wonderful. All right, so this is going to be a pretty funky panel. And I should mention too, off the top, GT Sewell, who was originally going to join us for this panel, has kindly invited Dundo up to the stage just to give a perspective on music NFTs too, which we haven't spoke a lot about today. So we look forward to hearing Dundo's thoughts in a second. But Jane, let's start with you. You've been around the scene for a while. Similar, we had Maddie, DCL blogger, up here earlier. Sort of really early days, you've been exploring a lot around digital art and traditional art and sort of pushing the boundaries. Like, just give us a little bit of an overview of yourself and what you're doing with GT Sewell at the moment in this space.
Yeah, so thanks, Greg, and hi everyone who's made it out to the IRL event. So GT and myself have been in the art game for well over a decade now, curating IRL exhibitions, working with international artists on shows both here in Melbourne and around Australia. We've had the privilege to work with some incredibly creative agencies and artists who have a really strong focus on their brand. And I think we've found over the last sort of 5 years of delving into the blockchain space is, I guess, the additional bonuses that artists can bring to their practice. So working on, their IRL artwork and then digitising that and starting to create another level of creation and pushing the boundaries even more so in their day-to-day creative practice. So I think for GT and myself, working with artists every day, basically, it's definitely set another fire off in us and sort of, again, using this space and using this technology to sort of break artists free from being tied down to just one specific traditional practice. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Jasmine, let's hear your story.
Hi everyone, nice to be here. I had an exhibition in March last year in, doomsday lockdown. It was going to be on a whole exhibition on a computer screen in a box, which kind of broke my heart. And so I thought I'm going to animate a piece of my work just so that the audience can have some engagement beyond just looking at my, my work. So I made this particular animation, and then someone told me, this should be an NFT, and I jumped on and really dived deep, went headfirst into exploring NFTs, and got on a platform and met people like GT and Jane, and and all this happens in Clubhouse and Twitter, and really it's just opened a whole new world for my art. So I'm a painter traditionally, and I make sculptures and animations, and I've always been really concerned with storytelling though. And someone said to me the other day, oh, NFT can't be art because digitally, like, how can a digital work, there's no emotion. And I said, have you ever cried at a movie? Like, you know, and they were like, oh, you know, and so there's that kind of like recognition that this is a new way of, for artists, a new way to tell a story really concisely and beautifully. For me, my work's animated, and I'm still practicing with all my other mediums, and the NFTs have been a way for me to have a common thread and extend my audience. And, you know, I've been able to engage with a market that was not accessible to me previously. And so, yeah, the NFT, you know, and like Jane said, like for me, I just get so excited about the future for my practice, like what I can do. I'm making some film now, which incorporates the sculptural elements and, you know, it's just extending storytelling. And the challenge for me is to make work that is emotionally engaging, feels like you've seen something, has some impact, tells a story. And yeah, I just, I'm really grateful for everyone who's supported my work so far, because like any artist, you have to have, you know, you have to have support, you have to have collectors, and then you can just, you know, move as fast as you can.
I think it's a really good point. I'd love to loop back to yourself and Jane in a minute about sort of that relationship between artist and collector. But let's throw, because I'm actually getting distracted, because not only have I seen a helicopter going around Marc-O-Matic's head, it's actually Flinders Street Station from what I can see. And it looks like a tram that is going around the top of your dome, Marc-O-Matic. So tell the people here at Marvel Stadium, and also for those watching online, walk us through your new face.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess my domain has really been augmented reality since 2017, so AR and VR. And, you know, I've been in Melbourne for about 12 years, and I've really it's really become, you know, my home. So, you know, there's just so much I love about the city. So I kind of wanted to sort of embody that through the various talks and panels and sessions I do through this, you know, kind of representation of the work I do. So, you know, there's quite a bit of details there. You've got Flinders Street, you've got trains, you've got trams buzzing with inside the, you know, the cranium. So it's all, I guess, for those who are, you know, from Melbourne, some will instantly recognize the various, vehicles and transport and all the other iconic elements that makes this city. So.
Yeah, amazing. It looks incredible. And thanks for giving me a heart attack when you told me you wanted to do it like this. So tell the audience, Marc, like what got you to this point? What sort of sparked your curiosity to be exploring and sort of pushing the boundaries of what you're doing with all this augmented reality? And you've got a sort of title that strings along as almost like an essay. You do that much funky stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think I fell into all of this, I think really by chance. I think in around 2016, 2017, I started exploring immersive tech like AR and VR, creating augmented reality and virtual reality stories. My background is quite mixed. It's across, you know, game development, advertising, and, you know, as much as I enjoyed those industries, the more I worked in them, I felt kind of tired and bored. And I guess AR and VR was kind of an evolution of the work I was doing. So, you know, as a traditional artist, as an illustrator, being able to embrace immersive technology sort of, you know, ups the level. It allows me to embrace my traditional skill sets into this new realm. And on top of that, I actually came across, you know, I jumped into the NFT and blockchain space around early 2020, I believe. I think when everything kind of went to shit. I mean, sorry, everything went, you know.
It's fine.
Yeah. So everything, you know, kind of fell apart for a lot of people, especially the creative industry. And I think I started talking with Giant Swan about, you know, his exploration into the space, because he was doing it before, you know, any of us really. And yeah, I think, you know, I sold my first work on Super Rare, and things just sort of took off, like, you know, it just sort of snowballed from there. And, you know, started landing, you know, exciting opportunities to redefine what NFTs could actually be. So it's not just being a static image or a GIF. It could be a virtual space or a 3D sculpture. So I've really had, you know, exciting opportunities to work with spaces like Decentraland and Super Rare to create some of the first, you know, virtual reality galleries and NFT artworks for the 3D sculptures. So yeah, I guess everything's kind of become intertwined, where NFTs meets AR, meets VR, meets experiential, you know, art. So
amazing. We'll come back to you shortly, Marc. Our last panelist on stage, Dundo. We haven't talked a lot about music NFTs here today. I know we had a panel earlier on our virtual stream that sort of addressed some of that, but sort of for the lame person in here that doesn't quite understand what that means, like how would you explain music and NFTs and the integration of those two, and give us your backstory and what you're currently working on?
Sure. First, let me say I never thought I wanted to kiss a building on the cheek until now. So I remember I've been in music all my life, musician, but it was always like a secondary thing. And I know many people personally that it's exactly the same story. I remember conversations with my mum and my grandmother at the time, and it was never like the thing that you would do as a primary career, because only one out of X number of people actually make it. I think NFTs can play a role there, but it's not that simple. It seems like we are used to basically getting all the music we want at $14.99 a month. So everything, all the soundtrack to life, music that makes you cry, that makes you move, that makes you dance. We're sort of used to getting it very cheaply, which I guess it's okay. Ideally, it should be all free, but unfortunately, artists cannot pay rent and buy bread with sound waves. They need it, converted into something like money. With the music NFTs, I don't think it's much different to art or anything like that. You can make the connection directly to the artist. You can support them directly. Similarly, like if you want to buy a very expensive set of, like a collector set of Pink Floyd records, there's usually a limited edition of that. I think the only difference is that between the Beatles and me, there's like a whole industry built over like 100 years. There's a supply chain, there are rights, there are all the legals, there's all the financials. With NFTs, it's actually quite simple. You just make your music, mint it, and the rest just either happens or it doesn't. Yeah, and obviously there's a lot of more to it. There's how you market it and so on. I'm not that deep into that, but just that idea that you can create something straight from you into the world without anyone sitting in between, I think it's quite big.
Thank you very much for that. And following on that from that, Jane, like how do you view, like what is the blockchain enabling artists to do that they couldn't do previously?
Yeah, I mean, that is a question that a lot of the IRL people in our world ask. And I think it's as simple as literally giving a space for an artist to take hold of their own brand or their own style of artwork, mint on their own smart contracts. There's been a whole bunch of artists out there that have taken to this space like a duck to water. And for myself and GT, seeing a street artist who is an international name and somewhat a household name also in some facets, step into the space and build on their already existing fan base, their communities, generating additional wealth for current collectors. And also they are definitely bridging the gap between, there's a lot of money in the IRL art industry, and I think the more the conversation goes between the artist from an NFT artist or a physical artist and having those conversations with collectors, it is going to continue to grow the space. I think it is really important to consider the wealth that's in the everyday art collecting community, right down to somebody who's buying something from your market off a lady who's made earrings, and then moving forward into the space it's giving the artists a way to continue to grow the space and keep that conversation open.
How important has the royalties of sort of the built-in royalties in smart contracts been for artists, given that we hear lots of stories about the artist sells an item once and that's their only revenue, and then if it gets unsold, for another couple of decades, the artist gets zero of that. With a smart contract, all that's built in up front. Like how crucial has that been to sort of entice new people into the NFT space, new artists?
Yeah, well, I'll touch on this really briefly because Jasmine can obviously talk to this one as well. From GT and myself, we've been collectors for many, many years. And I think watching artists grow in this space and watching their work go up in value and stuff like that, it's one of those things like we feel it's so important. And it is the bread and butter, and it continues to back the artist as well. And I think just even proof that their work it's worthy of that additional growth in the value of their work. I think that alone, regardless of the dollar figure that they get every time they get that payment, it's really just instilling that we are watching this artwork change hands, and we're seeing the benefits from the artist as well. So,
just before we throw to Jasmine, Marc, I might get you to make comment on that too, as sort of an artist doing great things in the NFT space as well. Like the royalties for you, how important is that?
I think it's quite significant. I mean, even if if you're doing art or if you're selling, wearable items for the metaverse, royalties as small as 2.5%. When you calculate that several thousands of times, like that can be a very decent monthly income for creators, which is again a great incentive to continue a stable career in this space. I think a really good example has been I reached out. I think it was last year. Yeah, so I collaborated with Maddie, DCL blogger, on the MetaKey Edition 3, and since then there's just been a regular rollout of royalties that have been coming in from secondary sales, and I still create one-of-one artworks and all kinds of other artworks too. But it's really nice to have that extra couple of $1,000 coming in on a monthly or 3 monthly basis. And there have been instances where you sell works at traditional galleries, and obviously in most cases, if the work is resold, you never hear or learn about where it is several months later. But with blockchain, with the ability to provide a ledger of origin, ownership, transaction history, all of that is transparent to the artist. And I think that's a great incentive to keep going. And in a way, it's kind of a bypass from the traditional art system to sort of kind of eliminate the middleman that handles the artist's finances, and the artists have full power and control of and visibility of their earnings. I think that's quite empowering for creators.
Absolutely. And Jasmine, from your perspective, like the relationship that you have with your collectors and sort of Web3, like it feels to me, coming from the outside of the art world, that the incentives are more aligned now for you to continue to create value as an artist, which is going to bring up the price of your artwork for your collectors. And it feels like the incentives are more aligned. Is that fair to say?
I would say that I feel like people are able to be more engaged with your career. Like for me, my career is quite diverse beyond NFTs. And so, for example, I'm painting a mural at the moment. So, people in crypto or my collectors can see that I'm also investing outside of the space consistently. And so that in time, the NFT, my NFT work will increase in value. And so people who are coming on board now, are rewarded for being, early collectors of my work. That's how I feel. And I would definitely, one of the big incentives, also it costs a lot of money to kind of make NFT work sometimes, and you're selling it for maybe less than, the amount of energy and time that's gone into it. And so I feel that's where there's more reward in the long term for the artist as well as the collectors who get in early. So it's definitely a big incentive. But I love making art. I'd make it anyway. But the money is a bonus.
Love it. Dundo, I remember actually listening to a podcast a couple of weeks ago with M Shadows. He's from a sort of metal band, and it was on overpriced JPEGs. Yeah. We've had Carly Riley on our stream earlier today doing a session, but he was talking about reinventing the traditional fan club for musicians and bands, right, through NFTs. So issuing, I think it's called the Death Bats Club or something like that. Yeah. And ultimately, you get the music, but you also get perks, right? Whether it's in real life concert tickets or metaverse. We've heard a lot about the metaverse today. So is that something that you think will be a real unlock for musicians moving forwards, is not just the music component, but providing perks from an IRL perspective and a digital perspective, owning that NFT?
Yeah, I would say yes. I haven't been firsthand in such projects as yet, but as Stephen Hughes would say, he's a Australian heavy metal stand-up comedian. He said, you can't be an Iron Maiden fan and then not be an Iron Maiden fan. Then you will never, it's until the last day on earth, you're a metalhead. And that's with most of the music, people are very, they feel a belonging. So using some sort of an NFT to represent that, I think it makes sense. But on royalties, I just wanted to say, in music, in late 60s, James Brown got Clyde Stubberfield, the drummer, jammed. They recorded an album, and there's like 12 seconds worth of drum loops from a song called The Funky Drummer, and it ended up being the most sampled piece of music in history. So a lot of the hip-hop movement is based on that one sample. Now that sample is owned by a company that runs a music supply chain business. Instead of the drummer, the culture of funk, the street. So I think that whole thing opens up a whole sort of interesting new world for artists and musicians alike.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jane, I saw a tweet, I think last weekend, or it might have been the weekend before, you and GT sort of buying up all kinds of massive screens. Can you give us a little bit of insight into what's going on there?
Yeah, so, I mean, for GT and myself, running IRL galleries for over a decade now, COVID put a huge dent in our connection to the creative industry face-to-face, and over the last sort of, we sold our fine art printing business early last year. We printed for such huge estates and places like the NGV and stuff like that. And so again, we found ourselves drifting from the IRL space and really connecting even more so with the NFT space. We helped out by hosting the Melbourne leg of Future Art early last year, and since then we've had 2 additional NFT exhibitions in our space in Collingwood. And I mean, GT likes to go big or go home, and we have been collecting digital screens and projection and stuff like that. So it's definitely a stay tuned kind of situation, but I think we hosted a digital X physical exhibition at the Rialto, and that ran for 6 months during COVID last year, where the public could just view it from the street in all the shop windows on Collins and Kings, and that's just, we've just got the itch to get back out and start showcasing, especially Australia's talent, to the world, where they don't have to sit behind a computer and try and figure out the NFT space. They can walk into a gallery and view like the upper echelon of this industry right there, and open conversation. So it is a cheeky one, but it's a stay tuned thing. But we definitely we're looking forward to the next few months and showcasing some really incredible work up close and IRL. So
that is what we call vague alpha. Last question. Hopefully we can get squeezed 2 more. Marc-O-Matic, tell us, 3 years from today, what are we all doing? Are we all wearing augmented reality caps around our head like you, or what are we going to be doing?
I probably would say more of our younger generations will be more into that than I guess the older ones. But yeah, I think, you already have Google, Apple, all the big players are developing their augmented reality their own augmented reality eyeglasses and headwear. And, look, to put on a virtual reality headset, it's great, but like not everyone wants to do that. It's kind of clunky and isolating. And I think augmented reality is far more practical for, for everyday, things. You could walk down the street with, some glasses and analyze things, or, bring things to life in front of you. So, I would say even, within the course of the next 10 years, I think AR glasses, I think that kind of technology will be as commonplace as, the newspaper, which I mean, obviously no one really reads anymore, but like it will become so mainstream and so commonplace.
I love it. I love it. We are out of time, unfortunately. It's a lot to get through when you've only got 25, 30 minutes with 4 panelists. But just lastly, Jasmine, you want to tell everyone and the rest of you where they can find you best to check out your pieces of work?
Twitter, if you go to Twitter. Jasmine's Art.
Okay, done. Jane?
I'm JL Artsphere, or you can look for GT, which is just it's just a GT.
We'll find it. It'll be on Twitter. And at what? Dundo?
Dundo at Maroye, Maroye.
Wonderful.
No one's going to spell that right.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining us. Marc-O-Matic, thanks for tuning in as well and joining us. We really appreciate it. We're going to bring up the host for the next panel, Yvonne Adele. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.